That's TV. I'm Ravi. We're joined now by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing okay, Sam. Doing okay. Lots and lots and lots of hot takes after this weekend. If your coach rule and this staff, do you start with mental stuff at this juncture in the season or physical at this juncture in the season?
Well, my sense is that they're going to have to assess, where the confidence level of the team is. Jamari Butler made a comment after the game just about how if a bad play happens, their heads get down on defense. So maybe examining what was going on there. I assume they did that yesterday. Maybe talk through it. They go to practice today. And then, there's execution things that were all over the field on Saturday. That didn't appear to be, a complete embarrassment in terms of, hide your eyes, the way maybe you would have seen a couple of those Ohio State Nebraska games over the years, but it was still 56-7, and you can't really hide from that. And Nebraska's defense was not up to the challenge. Obviously, they didn't get off blocks, they didn't make tackles, things didn't go well. I think Nebraska's offense, on the other hand, really needs to figure out who they want to be. So I don't know if that's mental. I don't know if that's physical, but you kind of have to assess that and work through it. And, we saw Nebraska run 40 plays in the second half, and they didn't score any points. So that's concerning against a defense that I don't think is actually one of the 10 best defenses in the country. And I think gave up, 28 and 24 to Maryland and Northwestern. So I think Nebraska has to really figure out who they want to be on offense and then be that team, irrespective of who they're playing or the situation, barring, late game stuff where you're trying to win a game and you can win a game. Nebraska was behind, 35-7 within, halfway through the third quarter. You have to accept you're not going to win that football game. Almost 999 times out of 1,000, you're not winning that game. So what do you want to work on over the last quarter and a half? And I just didn't feel like Nebraska made much progress over the last quarter and a half of that football game. So they're going to have to figure out what they want to be and who they want to be on offense for the last 5 games.
Sam, how fine a line is it, though? Because you heard the explanation, whether we like it or not, was you want to kind of go through the opportunity to put your hands up and fight back.
Yeah.
At what point? So it's kind of it's a philosophical thing, right? Do you go down? Like, at what point do you concede the outcome versus trying to get better where you think you may not be as good? And I say all that to say it seems like he was more focused on the emotional piece than the tactical piece to get his team better. Right? That's kind of what I heard him say. He's like, well, what ails us? Like, we got to learn to fight. Is kind of how I took it. I don't know whether we think that's right or wrong, but I think he was consistent in the message that he was trying to send.
Yeah, nobody's talking about, laying down. Again, there's various ways you can choose to do that. So, again, Nebraska has to figure out exactly who it wants to be, and it has to execute that way, and it has to break tackles and make tackles. And so much, you know this better than I do. A lot of the game is about blocking and getting off blocks. A lot of the game is tackling and breaking tackles. It's about making plays. It's not about schemes. And of course, it's about heart. But as he said, he didn't feel like, players just gave up. And I didn't see that either. I did see, at some point you kind of run out of pass plays that you feel good about. And Indiana's sort of just kind of waiting for Raiola to make a mistake. And that's tough to watch. So, I think there's lots of things that they can grow from. And it's hard in a week when you're playing Ohio State because you want to make it about you.
Yep.
And, you're not playing, you don't get to come off the loss to Illinois and talk tough and look at everybody and go, all right, what do we need here? And because you're playing Purdue, you're playing Ohio State, so like you can do a lot of things right this week, and you can even play a pretty good football game and still lose by 21 points because Ohio State decided that they wanted to play their best game of the season. And if Ohio State plays its best game of the season, then Nebraska is probably not going to win the football game. So, I think there's things that you can work on. That's why I think it's about Nebraska's identity. They have to decide now, who are we going to be? Because you could get down 17-0 real fast at Ohio State through no particular fault of your own. Jeremiah Smith might make 3 plays that virtually no one else can make, and you're down 17-0 and you feel like you played pretty good football. Is that the point where you're like, okay, now we're gonna do the 4 wide thing and let Dylan try to figure this out, or are you gonna stick with your identity? What do they want to do? Who do they want to be? I think those are questions that they have to answer for over the last 5 games of the year on offense.
Sam, when you say stick with your identity on offense, do you have a good sense of what they want that to be?
I think what they want it to be is they want to run the football and then fake the run and throw the football off of run fakes. What I think Nebraska is not consistently doing is blocking the guys in front of them, breaking tackles, and then when they want to throw the ball on a short pass to the sideline, a screen, a smoke screen, which is really like a standard, like it's, or a wide receiver screen or whatever, they need to block. The guys need to block. And Rutgers, Indiana's guys blocked. They're great blockers, and they commit to it. And there was a play in the second half when Tyson Lawton, I think, had a swing pass. He wasn't touched for like 30 yards. And there was a guy, one of Rutgers' guys was blocking the Nebraska corner like 20 yards down the field. I mean, they were blocking. And Nebraska wasn't getting off blocks, too. So Nebraska's execution has to be better. Like the quality of the execution from the skill players and the backs and to some degree the line needs to improve. And obviously there's room for Raiola to grow, too. But Raiola's got to – he needs more help. Like, this is not going to go the way that everybody wants it to go if it's like, okay, Dylan, you're a smart kid and you have a big arm. Figure it out. It's not going to go the way they want it to go. So, if 84 has to go out on the field, I know he'll block, and they know he'll block. If that's what you got to do, you got to start putting guys that are really like 5th and 16 receivers on the field, or not 5th and 16, the 5th or 6th receiver on your unit. If he has to go out there because he'll block for a running back, then that's what you got to do. Like, you can't continue to block the way that Nebraska's blocked on the perimeter if you want those plays to be a part of your offensive identity. Now, if you don't care and you just want to go away from those plays, well, then you don't have to put guys on the field that will block really well. But if they want to continue to run those kinds of plays, then they're going to have to get better blocking out of their receivers.
Sam, let me ask you something, because I heard this a lot and it's interesting, and I didn't have the full stomach to go back and watch everything yet, but just for instance, because I'm listening, and you sound a lot of people are like you, right? Well, we're gonna be good at the quarterback spot, but he's got to play better. But as opposed to he's got to play better, and he's got to play better, and he needs some help. It's not he needs to play better, but he needs some help. And I only say that because I'm looking at like the 4th down, the one that he forced to Fedoni. Right, it's a 2x2 set. He's got back to the field. There's a 6-yard little outcut that he could throw there.
Yeah,
that doesn't have anything to do with talent. Nothing. Not concept. Not bad play call. Nothing. Just he's open. Throw him the ball.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile wanting to coach your best player hard, but knowing he is our best player?
Right. So yeah, on that particular interception, Dylan, in my opinion, didn't throw it to the right side of the field. He had a player on the other side of the field that was open, and he stared Fedoni down, and so he brought the Asbury, the guy that made the interception, he brought him to the play. And even if that throw was really,
and I've just used that as a microcosm of
I totally understand. And yes, like I mean, there's things that he isn't going to do perfectly, in part because he's a true freshman. I try to remind people, I don't know that there are any other true freshmen who are regular stars in college football. I don't know. There have been a couple over the last however many years. Jaden Daniels did it. Caleb Williams did it. Well, one of the huge differences between, and I mentioned it in my column today, those guys run. Dylan is not a runner. So, like, he's never been one, and he's not going to become Caleb Williams. And so Dylan's not going to run around 47 yards around the field. He can't run them on zone reads. That's just not who he is, and that's okay. But knowing who he is, knowing that he's a true freshman, relatively stationary quarterback, you have to be really good around that. Like, you have to accept that he's going to have growing pains, A, and B, you have to also say, well, we know he isn't going to run 35 yards sideline to sideline in order to completely change the geometry of this play. Like, that's not going to occur. And so, knowing all of those things, you have to build your offense around a relatively fixed position quarterback who's also young. They chose to do that by basically saying, we're not going to add a transfer and tell Dylan that, like, just like he would have to do at Georgia, or just like he would have to do at, I don't know, Alabama, you're going to have to sit and wait, because that's what true freshman quarterbacks do at the collegiate level, unless you're Jaden Daniels, who started right away, or you're Caleb Williams, who was pressed into action. Maybe they didn't have the leverage to tell Dylan, listen, you're going to have to wait. You're redshirting this year, and you'll play your 2 years, and then you'll go to the NFL.
But I don't think I don't think that would have been the answer, though. You know what I mean? I think playing is. I mean, he's their best quarterback, clearly.
Well, he's their best quarterback because they didn't go out and get Curtis Rourke, and they didn't sign Colin McCord. And I'm not saying they should have. I'm saying that, like, once you make that choice and you say, okay, we're going to go with a true freshman, and on top of that, he's a Troy Aikman. He is a drop-back passer, and there's nothing wrong with those things. You have to accept that the players around him have to be good. They have to be really good, because he isn't going to, like, get you 70 extra yards with his running the football. So, like, when they run the ball, every time that Dylan is in the shotgun, and he's not there's no, like, triple option there. If he fakes it, he's either going to give it or he's going to throw it, but there's not going to be a run off of that. And so the reality is, defenses don't have to like think about that. Yeah. And so from my perspective, they just have, I mean, he is going to end up being, in my opinion, a much better quarterback than Adrian Martinez was at the collegiate level. For example, as a true freshman, you and I watched it. Adrian Martinez goes to Wisconsin and Ohio State, and they're like, we don't know what the hell we're supposed to do with this guy, because he can run and he can throw, and, we're not sure what to do. And so they go to Wisconsin and they score 24, and he throws for 400. And they go to Ohio State and, they score, I don't know what they scored, 31 on Ohio State. Like, these are harder things to do when the quarterback isn't mobile. That's why you got to be better around him. And so that's what I mean. Yes, you're right. He has to play better, and he needs help, given the circumstances by which, he's young. You can't expect him to have a 400 level knowledge of everything that's going on out there. It wouldn't be fair. Mm-hmm. And simultaneously, you have been gifted with the strongest arm probably in college football, but he's also not going to run a ton. And so you have to play around that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think Nebraska has to understand who they are, and who, he's more talented than Nate Stanley at Iowa, but, like, it's Nate Stanley at Iowa. Like, that's what you're getting. Like, you're getting a quarterback that's a drop back quarterback. So play, game plan and execute accordingly. From your perspective, as you watch the receiver, you're up there in the same vantage point we are. Do you feel like Nebraska's receivers and backs are playing at anywhere near the level that Indiana's backs and receivers were playing on Saturday?
No. The short answer is no, but I also feel like freedom of movement within said offense and mastery is part of it. right? When you can play free and you know what you're doing and you're free to do so, it's going to look different. So I'm not that linear. And not that you're wrong. I'm saying, like, I know Indiana is going to do the same four things. They are, concept-wise, right? It's not like, I mean, do they get credit for drawing up back shoulder throws on third down? No, that's execution. So it's not like I'm saying to myself, oh, man, this is Norm Chow SC. That's just they have mastered what they do really well. They run RPO, Sam, without work being a runner. Like, that's just that's just efficient because they know where the third of the triple option is. Like, so I don't get into their guys are better than our guys. I look at they're better at what they do than Nebraska is at what they do. That's kind of how I looked at it.
Right. So, like, two of the first three passes of the game, not the one to Fedona, but the other two where Dylan throws right.
Yeah.
It does not appear that he and the receiver are on the same page at all. So in one of those, Dylan expects him to sort of stay out, and like catch the ball. And I don't know.
You talking about the one that he threw out of bounds?
Yeah, where Nayor cuts in.
Yeah.
On a slant.
Yeah.
Raiola throws outside, and then they complete the pass to Fedoni. And then the next time he throws out there, I think it was like a 1 yard gain or a 0 yard gain. And again, they did not appear to be on the same page. Now, I don't know who you. I guess
that's a perfect example. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So, people want to talk about talent or skill guys. See, that's not a talent thing, because what would happen at a combine is Nair would test and Surratt would test, and Nair would be the guy that they're going, oh, look at his long arms and he's fast and he can do this. But you don't see that show up on the field. So if you wanted to say to me, hey, you know what, they need to maximize their personnel, or, you know, Nair needs to play better, or they need to be on the same page, it still is going to boil down to being a master of their own. This is a stupid term, but like kind of their domain. Like that pitch and catch combo isn't more talented. They're significantly more efficient. So Nebraska has to figure out, what's the problem? Do we not know enough?
Yeah.
Is this a teaching thing? Do we need to simplify? That's where the whole process versus outcome is difficult, because you're mid-season and you're 5-2. You're not 2-5. Right.
No, I mean, they haven't played horrible all season long. I think the thing that people look at is, okay, they're going to play Ohio State, tough one. Doesn't really matter how well Nebraska plays, could be tough. And then you look at the games after UCLA, and you see three teams that are probably equally talented as Nebraska, and you just wonder, you know. And so, like, I think everybody's hope is that, you know, you get to a bowl, but then maybe there's a little bit of extra gravy on top of that. So, you know, and I'm not just looking at short term. I'm also looking at, like, you know, it's not just a short term reality, but where's this team going to be, you know? And I wrote this in the column. Where's it going to be in 25 and 26? And why will all these things coalesce together? I mean, they went out and signed 2 senior receivers because I think they wanted to win now. It wasn't because now these 2 senior receivers will come in and they're going to make the guys behind them a lot better in the following year, even though those guys aren't going to play. So I think they wanted to be good this year, and, you know, Jalen Lloyd is improving. I think Jalen Lloyd's had.
I like the little subtle move to let him work in the slot.
Yeah, I think he's improving, and that's good. We haven't really seen Malachi Coleman, so, you know, I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know that Saturday was one of those games that he was going to play in, but, you know, so it's a unique moment that they're trying to work through, and you know what? At the end of the day, they are 5-2, and people, you know, this is a long sprint, a long marathon. It's not a sprint. It is disappointing that Nebraska lost by 49 to a team that could not have been within 14 points of Nebraska last year. And it's a sincere credit to their coach and to the staff that they've got those guys playing so poised and so composed. again, Nebraska's defense we didn't even talk much about them. They're concerning. It's sure, you never want to see them play like that. I just feel like the defense can rebound from that and play better. I think the offense, needs to keep coming because I think it's just going to get harder and harder to move the football against teams like Ohio State and Iowa and Wisconsin if you're not really good at something. And I think right now Nebraska is just so at a bunch of things on the offensive side of the ball. Just my opinion.
Sam, when you're looking at that defensive side of the ball, do you think at all that maybe playing in some of the younger guys would help? When you hear Jamari Butler say things like, sometimes a bad thing happens and guys get their head down. Like, how do you fix that? Is it just playing guys that don't have the baggage of past failures, or in your mind, how does that get fixed?
That's a really good question. I think, on some level, Nebraska's got good defensive players who are also seasoned and experienced, and we have seen those guys execute at a really high level. And so to say that, time to go to the young guys, especially in the secondary, I watched the game again. I don't think 31's as good as 3, for example. I don't think the younger brother's as good as the older brother, based on what I was watching. I don't think they have like new answers at safety that they're just going to bring into the game. I think you can play some different guys back there, but I think the guys who are there, I think at linebacker, they are playing more guys. Obviously Shavers is playing more. Bullock didn't have his best game, but you're not going to take John Bullock off the field. That guy's been a dude for the first 6 games of the season.
And he's I won't get into that. He was in a bind. Box 5 having to stop that RPO with the way that they played that front was going to be hard on insides. They knew it going into the game.
Yeah,
it was going to be tough.
Yeah.
Hey,
good offense and a good offensive line. So.
Sam, let me ask you something real quick, because you said something on social media that I thought was interesting, and 2 things could maybe be true at once about the level of play in Oregon and Ohio State versus Georgia and Texas and Bama and Tennessee. Don't you think Texas and Georgia could beat Ohio State though, or no?
Sure. Yeah.
Just
I do. But,
it was the 27 penalties, or because I think they finished at 28.
That's not good football. And the athletes are so good they just can't help but have 7 combined turnovers and 25 penalties. You go back and watch. I'll tell you what. You go back and watch the 2019 LSU Alabama game with Tua and Joe Burrow, and that's about as good a football as you're ever going to see in your life in college. I mean, that's 2 teams that have all-stars everywhere, and nobody can stop anybody, and that's great football anyway. And the SEC is not that anymore. We need to be honest. The SEC's talent pool is dispersed.
Yeah.
And so you don't have Alabama LSU from 2019 on the field right now. And Ohio State and Oregon have a lot of talent. Like, they have more talent, I think, than Georgia does. Maybe not Texas, but more talent than Georgia and probably Alabama. I think the quality of football is just super high with Ohio State and Oregon. They're good teams. And the SEC isn't quite the league it was 5 years ago, but the narrative around the SEC is really, 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 really good. The Big Ten is better than it was 5 years ago, because everybody remembers how Ohio State just humiliated everybody that season in 2019. The Big Ten is better, but I don't know that the narrative has changed much. And so, but Big Ten football is good right now. These are good teams that we're seeing, and Nebraska's not going to have it easy down the stretch. They're going to have to play good, hard football to win 2 games, much less 4. So the challenges are in front of them, and they're going to get tested, and we'll see how they do.
That's Sam McKewon from Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
Thanks, Sam.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.